Oh, snap. It's Sunday. Well, technically it's Saturday, but it's going to be Sunday when you watch this, and you know what that means? It's time for another episode of Faceplant Chronicles. So, what we are going to do today is a lot. You might want to skip to the end of the video just to see what we're going to do, but this is going to be almost like a two-parter, I guess, because what I want to do is create a factory for creating different types of notes in C. And then what I'm going to do is create a network that all of these can react to each other with multiple granular oscillators and stuff and figure out a way to do that. So if that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to stick around. So what we're going to start with is just a transient shaper on the end and clip this. That's just what I like to use instead of a limiter. It's nice because if you turn this volume up over here, in case we didn't know this, that says -9, we turn this up. That's -3, we can turn the gain up again. No matter how loud you push this, it won't go past 0. Now, hey, I have something very important to tell you. Just because it doesn't go past 0 does not mean that it does not get louder. So protect your ears. That's a very big false thing that is very important for people to know, especially if you're a beginner. Okay, cool. All right. So on that note, let's go ahead and start with a wavetable. And I don't really care what this is. In fact, we can just kind of leave that as such. Now, the goal of this first section is to try to create different interactions of, say, FM and stuff, to where we're going to have lots of different instances of C. So one thing that we can do is provide a bunch of these here to where we're going to get a lot of different variations behind the phrasing of this as well. And so what I mean by that is maybe we want to do the attack. Then maybe we want to do the decay. We can pull the sustain down. Then we can also pull down, or pull up rather, the release. So now whenever we phrase this, we're going to be getting lots of different stuff. And then what we can do is set this to different intervals of when this is supposed to trigger. And here in a second, which I guess this won't matter, but I do want this to be kind of slow, is we're going to right click this and go note trigger always on all of these. I could have just done this once, just so you know, to where I could have just made one and set all of this to always, but I guess when you're trying to narrate and do this from scratch, you aren't always the most efficient, so bear with me. Okay, so now that we have that, if I hit this note, there we go. Yeah, we're getting lots of different stuff, which is great. So what we're going to do is we're going to play with a bunch of instances of FM. But what I would like to do is, oh, this will be fun. So I'm going to grab a few different wavetables here, but I'm only going to set up one for now. And the reason why is because I'm going to try to apply all of the modulation to a single instance first, and then I will go and add in all of the other stuff to make it more interesting. So what does that even mean? I'm going to grab an envelope here, and I'm going to set this here and apply a random to the amount of decay. And now with this, what I will also do is grab another one here, and we are going to apply, I don't know, say to a 7th harmonic here. And again, I need to go always retrigger, always retrigger. And what I may also do is set this to free, now that I think about it, and just set this to free. So that way this is always going to retrigger whenever we press a button. So watch. So now what we need to do is apply some kind of FM to this. So let's go ahead and apply it to any one of these. It doesn't really matter, but now what we need to do is make sure that this doesn't go up to a certain amount. So So with this, what we need to do is, I forgot to do that, but we need to apply this to here. So now that should actually end up doing what I wanted it to do. So it should start with that weird arbitrary sound, but then go into pretty neat, right? Okay, cool. So bear with me because it's going to get cooler. Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, say, I don't know, 3 times. Nope, I'm going to undo that 3 times. And what I am going to do next is... No, that's fine. Okay, so just back up. We're going to copy that 3 times. I'm going to set all of these to 0. And we're going to change the wavetables of all of these here in just a second. But what we need to do is apply this modulation to all of these. So we need to go here to go like that. It doesn't need to be exactly the same, but it does need to kind of have some kind of resemblance of giving us a little bit of juice, right? So that way whenever we hit this, it's going to do something. So now here comes the fun part. We need a bunch of these. And I found a really efficient way to do this, so follow along if you want, but we're going to hit this square right here, and I'm going to go like this and turn the rest of these off, just like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and on this one, I'm just going to, without closing it, just modify it to where it's this one now. Now, this was the first one. Now we have the second one. Now we're going to put this in the third quadrant, or I guess the third set of columns, rather. Then we duplicate this. And so really what we did is we set this from 1 to 4 without having to open up these individually. So it just took the last one. And so really this is actually a copy of the first one. But now that we have this, look. So this is set to here, this is set to here, that's set to there, that's set to there, right? So now what we can do is distribute this. So I can say on this one, right click, we can go to 100. On this one, right click, we can go to 100. Now on this one, right click, we can go to 100. And then on this one, right click, and we can go to a hundo. Cool. So what does this mean right now? Absolutely nothing. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab this macro here and set this to all of these. So now what's going to happen is as I cycle through all of these, look. So only one of these are going to activate at a time, and we have essentially created an instrument selector. Yay! Except we're just doing it with FM. So because of that, we can actually change this into whatever. Let's say we keep that one square. Doesn't really matter. We could do this with, I don't know. Let's go drink water. We can set this one to moldy pumpkin. Don't ask. And this one we can do trash panda. So we've got 4 different waveforms now that are each going to select behind when we set this. Now to take this a step further, we can set this to an LFO table, kind of like so, and either control this individually, or we can set this to randomize this. Yoink. Set that there. So now just from using the left side, what I've done is I've created this crazy weird amalgamation of stuff that's going to jump around and do all different types of cool stuff. We're going to go ahead and add another one of these. Actually, no, I'm going to duplicate this. No. I'm going to grab one of these because this has the note on, so always retrigger. And what we can do on this is really just randomize all of this whenever we press a new note. It doesn't really matter if these are all the same because only one of these are going to be triggered at a time. So, or I guess if you wanted to, gosh, it's got to be different, you know? It needs to be different. Otherwise, it's just kind of like everybody else. So now within this, we've got different placements of this, different wavetables, different harmonics that this is going to be jumping around at. And so what we can do is mess around with how this is going to be interacting with the sound. So So one thing that I do want to do with this, because I know that it doesn't sound all that interesting right now, is we need to go back to that envelope here and maybe just keep this kind of something more consistent. Ah, that's why. Okay, so let me back up. One thing that I forgot is that we need to apply this to all of these. There we go. So now we can go back to randomizing this. My bad. And we can apply how far this goes. So I was wondering, I was like, why is it doing that? But now that I fixed that, all of those are going to here. We can kind of make this do lots of different cool stuff. So check this out. Like, you see how many different sounds we have from this? So what's really cool is that from having something like that, maybe I'll turn the release up just a bit. And maybe what I can do is just randomize this instead, because what I was hoping this would do is kind of jump around and do different. Yeah, so we'll take out the middleman of that, and instead of randomizing where that plays, we can kind of just make this jump around. Nice, right? Sweet. So what I want to do as well is I might want to have this come in a little bit later at some times, because I do want this to kind of have some other instances of perhaps sounding a little bit off, a little bit more, a little bit less like FM bells or just sine waves and stuff. I do want it to be a little bit like weird. You know, it's like that. That stuff is nice too. So I definitely want some of that to be included in there. Maybe what we can even do is duplicate this envelope, kind of like so, and reduce this to a different amount, change this to a different amount, and now let's go ahead and take these as well and apply AM to this. If you're still here watching this, do you prefer dog or cats, and why? Cool. So now that we have that, we can apply this to all of those. And so now we've also applied AM to this as well. So I'm going to set the polyphony on this to 1, and this is just meant to be a factory. And the reason why I say that is because what this is really doing is essentially just giving us a bunch of different variations for a bunch of C notes. Yeah? And because of that, what I can do is, I guess we'll do some processing on the outside of this. So maybe it would be wise to, for one, plug in my trackpad because that's getting ready to die. 2, it might be nice to start opening up like Snap Heap or something. Probably Snap Heap, because what's going to happen is we're going to run out of modulators here any second, which I don't remember how many we can apply. So in this instance of Snap Heap, this is meant to just be something that we can use for creating different effects and different blooming and blossoming and blah, blah, blah off of this. So before I do any of this though, I think what I want to do is set this to 0, 0, 0, 0. All right, now for the sake of when I put this out, because this is going to be for sale at some point, I'm going to use an audio follower here, and I'm going to make this trigger all of these. And the reason why we need to do it like this is because if you're just putting this over MIDI, then it'll read it and it will be fine. But if it doesn't, then we need something to be on here in order to trigger an impulse that's going to set this off. So check this out. Makes sense? So we can also do that with an envelope. This is a very similar process of like how I go about making drums and stuff. But what we're doing here, and maybe what we can even do is randomize this as well in case if we want to apply a filter, is let's start there. So first off, we are going to apply a filter here. And then we can use another random here to change the offset of this. Nice. All right. So I kind of messed up because these are supposed to be up here, but that's all right. We can just leave that as is because it's not that big of a deal. But from this point on, what we'll do is we'll start messing around with different stuff to be able to attach this to different stuff. That made absolutely no sense. It'll make sense here in a second. Where I'm going to kind of just have fun mapping this to different placements to where we need to turn this on. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on and run this in here, and then I will send this into, let's just do a limiter for now, just in case. But what we can start to play with as well are things like this of shaper tables, which is really good. I'm going to turn off the DC. And let's go ahead and apply maybe not 100% mix, but maybe just a little bit. And then we can change this into something different. So I don't know, that could be cool. Let's go ahead and flip the bias. I'm going to flip this under the filter because that could be crazy. So maybe if we keep it there, it'll be relatively neutral still. Now we can do this also with reverb. Now, unfortunately, we can't manipulate the fade in, fade out stretch stuff on here because I guess that just requires too much CPU or whatever. So we're going to be kind of sparing with that. But we can put this in something that's really big, like, I don't know, St. Andrew's Church, and then just modify that. Maybe at like 50%. And really you can do whatever you want with this, to be honest, because there's not really a right or wrong. And the other thing to consider as well, which would be the only restriction that I would kind of try to be mindful of, is the pitch. So anything that you do here, it might be wise to try to keep the pitch intact. So if I'm going to use something like this, then, and I start making this jump up and down or whatever, it's going to break it, which can be fine if you're just looking for random sounds. But for me, I would be trying to maybe do something kind of like this and maybe not turn that up all the way. You know what I mean? So maybe something kind of like so, to where if I were to play something, we might want to put this over here. How cool is that? Sweet. So this is just a handful of effects, but we can obviously go further with creating lots of different texture and whatnot. Perhaps we could use something like a comb filter. Set this to stereo and kind of just let that move around and do its thing for funsies. Maybe set that to like 25%. I want to put this behind the reverb. We can also create interactions with other reverbs as well. So maybe if we set this to be a larger sound, kind of like so, and we utilize this to go further down. Same thing here, we pull back on this. Let me make sure that these two are not doing the same. So that's an effects 3. And that's an effects 1. Okay, because I want them to be different. But we can also do stuff like a chorus. Doesn't really matter. Might be cool to set the depth to 100% because what that's going to do is make it kind of like pitch wobble. We're going to call this the factory maker. I'm going to throw that in Requiem 3. And we can kind of just leave this on. But now that we have something like this, we can kind of go around and play with lots of different options here. But see why this is neat? Because we've got not too complicated, I guess. Well, maybe it is. But basically what we can use with this is a recorder now, kind of like so, to where we just set this to play at every bar. So I'm just going to record a C. Let's go C3. This is going to make sense here in a second. But what I'm going to do is set this, and then what I'm actually going to do next is I'm going to go J. Because now, check this out. Shit, okay. All right. Oh, man. Okay. So, this is great because what I will do with this is, I'm going to maybe fade that in. I'm going to take all of these and fade them out. But what's awesome is that what I have just done is I have created a factory of different notes in C. So what we'll label this is, here we're going to go into this, and then we're going to go to, can I do that? I can rename all this? No, I can't. Okay. So what I'll do instead is I will go to, I'll call this Requiem 3 C samples. And now what I'll do is one more time, just bounce these out. And now I can drag all of this stuff into a new folder here. So I'm going to move this over to the side. We're going to go new folder. I'm going to go right click. Or double click, like long press, maybe. Bro, oh my gosh. Okay. Jesus. Requiem 3 C samples. And because of this now, with all these bounces, we can go into this. And I can drag all these here. And we did 67 of these, if I'm not mistaken. So now check this out. Wow. So I'd probably want to do this a couple of times and take the best bits, because that would, for one, be lazy, but two, all of them kind of have that sound, which I'm not really that fond of. But now that we have that, we can go back into this and grab another instance of faceplant. And now this is where things get fun. So if you need to, take a break if I haven't captivated you already, because now what we are going to do is a very similar setup, but we are going to utilize the granular sampler instead. So what we need to do is grab ourselves a transient shaper, and we're going to turn this off, and I'm going to grab a granular thing here. Yeah, now you getting it? Huh? Maybe? So what I'll do, just for my own sanity, is I'm going to grab that sample pack. Requiem 3, and then I'm just going to grab that to the sample pack here. So that way, whenever I add this, I'm not going to have to move it, which will be nice. So if I just go to here and go to the Requiem stuff in C, actually, I'll just add a location here and just do the whole thing, because that'll be easier. Sample pack, Requiem C, and there you have it. Shabink, boom, blam, kaplam, user, Requiem 2 samples. All right, sample pack. There we go. And then I think that, I guess not. So what we'll do is we'll just grab one of these randomly, and we can play with this in a granular engine, which could be cool. I'm not going to have to tune this, which is nice, because it's already there, which is why I do that, so that way you don't have to change the original pitch. But here's the cool thing. So we've got all that, but then what happens if we do this? Let me grab a wavetable here. Let's go 30%. And then we go boom, boom, boom. Oh, you see where I'm going with this now? Yeah. So what we can do is we go remap, edit this, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the rest off. Duplicate. Turn this off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn this off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Duplicate. Turn that off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam. Now we go here. We're going to utilize this to instrument select, kind of like so. Now we set this one to 100. Set this one to 100. We might want to do 200, but that's okay. I guess we can just turn the gain up, which is probably what I'll end up doing anyways. Oh, we forgot the last one. That's fine. Or the first one, rather. Now we've got 100. Now we can change the samples into something different. Something different. Something different. And now we can also grab an envelope here that is going to go this way. Go to this one. Go there, go there. 4. Grab a random. We can modulate that. And now we have a rabbit hole of how we get into making all of these different sounds and stuff sound really nice. Because of this remap as well, this is going to sound a lot different, and this I actually will use an LFO table for, because it's going to give us some really cool results here in just a second. But what I want to do is maybe have that and give ourselves a little bit of decay on this, and what's going to happen is it's going to bounce behind all of this stuff. We're going to do more, but let's just do a quick checkup of what this is going to sound like. Let's go ahead and add an octave to this. Now we can randomize the positions of this. And now what we can do is we can grab a couple more of these and we can go random, 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 grab one of these guys, random, 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 random. Then we can grab another one of these guys and we can increase the size. Is that all of them? Yeah. So now we can mess with the grain shape of this, which is what makes freaking the granular engine inside of Faceplant so powerful. Like, if this isn't blowing your mind, I don't know what else will, to be honest, because like, even if you don't like what's coming out of this, like just the sheer fact that you can do this with a bunch of stuff is absolutely cracked. So all right, so let's set this to be a little bit larger, because and a little bit less here, because I don't want it to be like so jittery and whatnot. And this is going to be like where the magic really comes in, because you're going to kind of have to figure out where this, oh, that was that one. So that's the grain size. This is that. Okay. Yeah, you're going to kind of have to figure out how you want this to kind of play out. You know, if you want it to just be random like that, then there's that. But if you want to kind of play around with having something that's a little bit more playable, then you might want to increase the sizes of these. Now, some other stuff that we can do is you can play chords with this if you want to. We can also turn that off and not have that on everything. We can align the phases of all of these. We can also change the range of this to something different. We can not randomize the position as much if you don't want to, or just let it play. Here, we can also set something to reverse. So now we can get reverse sounds out of this, which could be cool. Something else that we can do is we can make this table go a little bit slower. So Now, this is still going really high, so I'm trying to back off of this just a bit by not making this too small. And that's going to kind of help that sound a little bit better, I think. Now, the other thing that you can do too is you can actually set all of this up to be in sync with something. So if you wanted this to play at different intervals and different rates, let's say you have this at, 8, and then you have this one at 16, and then you have a wild card at the bottom that could be something different. But now, check this out. I think that it's important to like go through all this stuff with you because you can kind of see like how drastically of different results you're getting. Like, yeah, they're all the same pitch and the same sound, but the way that they're being expressed and what you're getting out of it is vastly different, at least in my opinion. So now that we have something like this, we can get into doing something else that could be kind of cool, which I've shown before many times. Other people have shown this before, but we can actually create a scale on here like Gregorian Phrygian, which is what I usually use, and set this to 12. And now, in between this, I can grab an LFO table. So there's some tricks that I like to do in this that's really fun. For one, I'm going to hold Command, so that way whenever I double click, it's going to create a step for me, kind of like so. But I can bring that back up and make this move kind of like so. Now I did that last weird thing like that on purpose, and I'll show you why here in a second, but we can kind of just create some random arbitrary steps that don't really matter. Oops, that needs to be here. That needs to be there. Sure. Boom. Boom. And then we'll turn the loop off. So now what we'll do is we'll click all the way on the opposite side here, and we'll do a different shape. Come on. Gotta work with me. And so what we're doing essentially is just creating different steps on here that we're going to combine into different melodies that are all going to be conformed within the scale that we have. And you're going to notice that I've got some errors here, kind of like this, and sometimes I'm reluctant to change that just because if you look at what I'm going to do here in a second, we can get some really interesting movement sometimes that will be like strange. Not always, but we can do like weird stuff to where we have this like odd correction right here. So let's say I've got this and I move that kind of down, but then I fix it like with too many steps or whatever, kind of like this. And then it will like do something weird like that. You see that? That's kind of cool. So that weird shaping and phrasing that we have right there can be super useful in some cases, especially if we're trying to make stuff that's not quite like a pitch bend or something of the sort. And so if I set this to sync and we turn this down, let's say I set this to like 8, then what we have now is a melody generator that's going to be within the Phrygian scale. Now keep in mind, let's go ahead and just do this to prevent any problems, is that this isn't going to be Gregorian Phrygian A or B or C. It's Gregorian Phrygian whatever note you play. So it'll transpose the entire scale up depending on pressing one key. And that's both a blessing and a curse because essentially I could just press D sharp or whatever and it's going to play that, and then I can cycle through this wavetable to get different stuff. But you cannot play like multiple notes with chords on this in order to make this like obey what this is supposed to be, because theoretically speaking, Faceplant does not have a true arpeggiator built into it. But that's okay, because we don't need it. Now we need this to be mapped to this, and so sorry we weren't getting any different changes, but now so you see how sometimes we can get some weird movement like that. So now, did I set this to 24? I did. So we're going to set this to plus and minus, because what this was doing was only setting this to all the way up. So we had this at 12, but now that this is at 24 and up and down, this is actually going to be at intervals that we're familiar with. That's why I was making weird sounds. So now that we have something like that, we can just use that in our toolbox in order to create cool stuff. And we can continue to do different pitch stuff with this as well if we want to, but I don't really find that to be necessary at this moment in time. We really just kind of can play around with these different shapes and stuff that look interesting. So sweet. So now that we have that, we can start the other process of getting other different stuff out of this, which can be really nice. For example, we can start to go for, depends. Do you want to make this more like raw? Do you want to make this into something that's more metallic? Do you want to make this into something that's going to be more ethereal? Like, it's really up to you, you know. And I guess, like, I don't really feel the need to explore all those options, but let's do the easiest one, which is making this more quote unquote ethereal. But if we have different stuff like this, and we have a ducker on here, and let's just say that we play with a random on this, kind of like so. Well, then when we start to play with the melodies and stuff, we can use an ensemble, maybe at 2 voices. Then we can utilize a reverb. And something that we can do is add an audio follower here to duck this, kind of like so. And then what's cool is we can always just turn off the remap if we want to, and then we can go back to playing chords if we want to with the polyphony. So we can kind of set that back up to 8 and play a chord. then we can let that come back in when that goes off, or we can just turn it off if we want to. And you can create your own melody if you want. If we want to make this into something that's a little bit more metallic, then something that might make sense is creating this into a short envelope, kind of like so. And what we would do is make sure that this, every time this is triggered, is randomized. So that way this is always going to be in a different spot. So we can set that to halfway. Let me make sure that's going to do that. So we can further confirm this by resetting or randomizing the phase as well. Now that we have something like that, what we can go for next is changing the pitch here. And we can set that to like 12. We can grab another randomizer here now and just pull that at an arbitrary amount. And then what we can start to go for are just basically like your typical run-of-the-mill, you know, metallic makers. So really short amounts of delay. We can go for that comb filter. Now we can kind of just like distribute as well, because it's not really going to matter, but we can go for a shaper table perhaps, turn the DC filter off, maybe boost this by like 3 and randomize that. To be honest with you, I really mostly use shaper table just on this one all the way up to like halfway, just because it goes from like a nice smooth curve to a sharper curve, and then it begins to do the opposite. But this is the foldback is actually pretty nice. So now what we can do that could be kind of sick is we can mess around with maybe just like one semitone, and we can maybe randomize the phase of this. So that's really cool. So yeah, I mean, you can continue to go further with this if you want to, which we can add more distortion, or we can start to shape it like with a, what's it called, compressor perhaps, or shape it with an OTT. But this stuff is kind of cool because it's starting to sound like, you know, like a metallic lead. And then maybe it might even be cool to see if we can kind of get this to jump as well. You got to be careful with this one because sometimes it might be too much and it might give you like a really harsh whipping effect, which can be hard on your ears. So just be careful. Right. So what we can do is probably set a limiter on here now because I really don't want that to go past whatever point that's going at. You got to be careful with that. But if you want to make this start to sound like, I don't know, like timbres that are like scary or eerie, we can make this into a pad. Let me go ahead and throw this reverb before the distortion because that's going to make this change a lot. So check this out. We can add a fuse compressor to the end of this. Really what's going on here is the compressor and the distortion can't keep up with whatever the heck is going on, which is kind of funny. So you might want to have a shorter attack and longer release whenever you're doing stuff that's not percussive. That's so fucked. But awesome. And then we can go back. So that was awesome. Let's go ahead and just dial this down. And then I'm not really sure how I'll organize this, but I will at some point to a means that will be more usable in a patch whenever I decide to put this out for sale. But as of now, you've got a few different options about how you can utilize this, but even still, just like doing the first part or going back and making lots of different changes and stuff can be lots of fun. I found this out because I was doing a preset pack for Cube. Shout out to Lunacy Audio. You guys are awesome. Thank you for everything. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I can find a way to kind of like utilize the power of Cube, but in a way of Faceplant? And I found this like not happy medium, but something that became its own thing, I guess. And so what's cool about that is we found this own like this weird, unique patch special thing that I have never really thought of before. But let me see where that other thing was that I saved. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of these ready, but it's not quite ready yet. Date modified. January, today, table melody template, granular. So let's pull up the granular special kit if that's in here. There it is. And you can see that I've got a very similar setup here that has different stuff that's all kind of in C, but I think instead I use the stuff from Requiem 2. But what's going on here is I don't have any FM or anything that's going on. It's just kind of meshing between these sounds, but you can see that this is kind of playing between all this stuff. But you can get really nice stuff like this. It looks like on this one I didn't really go the whole route of like modulating all this stuff, but I'm glad that I did in this video because as you can tell, like there's a lot of random stuff that it's just nice. And then on this melody thing here, wherever that was that I saved, melody something user this melody table template, you can see that this is basically something that I did as well, but on a much more simple stance of just generating different stuff. So and then you can use this to kind of go off on your own and create the different factory stuff that we made today. So anyways, that about wraps it up. Hopefully that was fun, and it was a lot, but it was something that is going to be really cool to put together for the Requiem 3 sample pack. So I hope that, or sorry, preset pack, so which will have a bunch of samples in it. But I do want to go back and like try to make sure that all of these sound different, because a lot of the samples on the side of this were very samey, and you know me, I really want to make sure that you all feel like you're getting quality whenever I put things out for sale. And also give you the tools to kind of create things that are similar, because I know that if you watch this verbatim from scratch, it's always going to be a little bit different, and you should be trying to make it different from what it is that you're doing. On any case, thank you everybody. If you want to support the channel, alchemy.com, book a lesson with me, alchemy.com, alchemy.com. You can consider becoming a member, where I have exclusive videos of things that I don't put out as regular tutorials. I know that a lot of you have asked for drum stuff. I'm sorry, that's like the one thing that I hold close to me. But everything else, bass, whatever, is, yeah. But I've got full like start to finish videos on there. And you get access to it for the whole month that you are a member. So, you know, if you pay 20 bucks, then you can watch all the videos and then unsubscribe if you want to or something. It's totally fine. Yeah, doesn't matter. I appreciate anything and everything. So even if you could just like the video and like leave a comment, even if it just says like burger, I don't give a shit. It does help me out a lot. So thanks guys, I appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.